Awesome. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. We're so excited to share with you an intro and about emotional intelligence. So my name is Jen, and together with my sister Lena, we created Goal and Glow. The reason why we started this business is because we wanted to help motivated and driven individuals like yourselves grow in your personal life, career, or self-made businesses. So I'm a CPA by trade, and I've been working in the corporate finance world for over 10 years. Lena has over 15 years of experience in human resources, and in the last 10 years, her focus has been coaching leaders at various levels in the organization, and last year she got certified as an EQ practitioner, and since then she has helped many leaders through EQ assessments. So we wanted to share our learnings just because of what's happening, especially right now with COVID-19. It's so critical to learn about how our emotions play such a huge part on stressful times like these. So as Lena explains all the different emotions, I encourage you to reflect on how this resonates with you or with someone you know. So take lots of notes, and there will be helpful ways of how you can alleviate those pain points. So this session will be about an hour long. Please feel free to just comment in the chat box. Anytime you have any questions below, we will save time for questions at the end, and we definitely want this to be an interactive presentation. So yeah, let's begin.
All right, thanks, Jen. Hi, everyone. My name is Lena, and I will be presenting you emotional intelligence during stressful times. We really wanted to offer this free Zoom session to you because of the nature of what's going on. I think we can all appreciate that all of us are under some sort of a stress during this time, whether that be not knowing if you're going to get sick or if a loved one is sick, not knowing when this is going to end, how is this impacting your job? For the parents out there, your kids are at home with you, they're no longer in their routine. So how are they dealing with that, and how are you dealing with it as a parent? And so we thought emotional intelligence would be such a great way to shine a light into maybe helping you understand what's going on within yourself and the feelings that you're feeling, but at the same time having empathy for others and being able to somehow explain maybe why people are doing and behaving the way that they are during this stressful time. And so like currently when it comes to COVID and what we're seeing, and this is obviously generalization, and I think you guys would see it as well in terms of social media, is we're all self-isolating. And so with this self-isolating, there's this lack of connection, and this lack of connection can really impact our well-being, our mental health. Other things, negative news. Oh my gosh, I can barely even watch the news these days. All the news is about COVID. It's very sad, it's overwhelming, it creates a lot of fear. News on the social media, it's crazy. There's so much news out there, from who has the next hand sanitizer, to how much COVID has spread, to anticipation of when this is going to end, to motivational posts. Like, it's just a whole hodgepodge of different things. There's a lot of change going on in the world right now, where everyone has probably felt some sort of change, whether you can't see a loved one that you're used to seeing, you can't go out to a restaurant, school's done, so you guys are now stuck at home, online learning as opposed to in-person learning, jobs, people are getting laid off. So there's a lot of unknowns that's creating a lot of anxiety and fear and uncertainty. And the last thing I wanted to touch on is the judgment that's going on. I don't know about you, but for a while I was stuck on reading comments on posts, and it's just amazing how much shame is being thrown out there to other people. And it's crazy that during a time like this, people are stressed, so they might not be behaving the way they normally behave, and people are extra sensitive to things, and that judgment has lent itself to shame and shaming others, unfortunately. The other day I saw someone repost someone's post and shame that post on their Facebook. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. So I'm hoping that this session will help you understand maybe why people are behaving the way they're behaving, so that we can create more grace and empathy for not only yourselves, but for others during this time. So I'm gonna just share my screen here with you. And we do have a presentation here. Jen, can you see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect, thanks. And so what is emotional intelligence? Okay, so emotional intelligence is your ability to recognize and understand emotions in yourself and others, and your ability to use this awareness to manage your behavior and relationships. And so when it comes to emotional intelligence, I know from my upbringing in school, even at work until recently, we didn't talk a lot about emotional intelligence. A lot of things that we talked about was really IQ, intellectual quotient. And so what I really find is that the more I learn about emotional intelligence, the more I really believe that emotional intelligence is just as important as IQ. And the reason being is that IQ is the data, the facts, the black and white of what is happening, the real. But what happens is that EQ is all the gray around it. It's how people perceive that information. And especially during times of stress, the way we perceive information could be different than the way we perceive information when we're calm, cool, and collected. So one really good example about where EQ is so important, if you guys have ever been in a meeting or a get together where there's two people that aren't getting along and there's a disagreement in the room, and then after that meeting, you guys kind of break apart, meeting's over, you all kind of go to your, the water cooler talk, and you're talking to your best coworker or friend about the situation, like, I can't believe that happened and that blowout happened, and you guys both have very differing opinions and perspectives about what happened. It's like, no, it wasn't that bad. It was really good that they talked it out. And you're like, no, it was bad. Did you hear what they said? And you have differing opinions. You're both in the room, you both heard the same conversation, you're both there, but what you took out of it was very different. That is EQ. And the reason why it's so different when people perceive the exact same things happening and the perception is so different is that in our brain, we all have had different upbringings. We've all had different types of parents, different school teachers, different hardships and life experiences, and that's kind of created who we are today. So with your brain, what happens is when you see something stressful, it immediately attaches to an experience that you've had before that's similar, so that you can kind of be able to understand it in however best you can. So you link it to an experience you've already had before and try to make sense out of it. And that's what's happening to the other person. They're linking it to another experience that they've had in their life and trying to make sense of it. And that's where people's perception becomes a reality, but not everyone has the same perception. So today what I'm going to tap into is that everyone has 7 categories of feelings. And everyone has their own emotional intelligence quotient. So that's where EQ comes from. So everyone feels every emotion. It's just a matter of how much and how often you feel that emotion. And that's where we're all different. These emotions are embedded in us from our life experiences and our upbringing and what we've learned throughout our lives. And no one has the same life. No one's walked a life in your shoes. So your emotional intelligence profile is like your fingerprint. And so we'll be talking more about that. So I wanted to go on to the next page of what an emotional assessment looks like. So everyone has their own emotional assessment. And this is what it looks like. Although it's down to the percentage because it's based on science and studies of the brain. And so when you take an emotional intelligence assessment, your profile will look really different than the next person. So when I took my profile and I saw it, it was like, whoa, weird. And when I really dug deep into it, it almost felt like a mirror was being placed and I was able to really see myself and why I am the way I am and why I do the things I do when I'm stressed out. I did Jen's assessment, and what was crazy to me is that I always thought that me and Jen were really similar. Jen, my sister, was really similar. We grew up in the same house, same household, same parents, same kind of track where we kind of went to school, college, finished our degree, got corporate jobs. We liked the same things, we're into the same clothes, makeup, that, same friends. But what happens is her emotional intelligence assessment was so different than mine because the way she perceives information is different than me. And so what was really cool is that we were really able to learn more about each other and be able to have a stronger relationship through our emotional intelligence assessment because A, we got to understand ourselves, and B, we were able to understand the other person. And so with our emotional intelligence assessment, like I mentioned, no two people have the same assessment. So I'm going to go into just quickly like 1 or 2 sentences about each of what they measure, so you have an idea of what an assessment would look like. And what we're going to focus on today is this one little piece of the pie, which is our access of range of feelings. And this is how easily are you able to access all 7 categories, and do you access some too much and others not enough? Because each feeling has a benefit to it. And so we'll tap more into this for the remaining session, but just as an overview of an EQ assessment, really, this is understanding you and how you're able to access all 7 feelings. And what does that mean? And why are you able to access some more than others? Positive and negative orientation measures if you're someone that sees conflict as opportunity, sees conflict as something that's a great change that could happen. Are you someone that sees conflict as the glass half full? Negative orientation, when people have negative orientation, when there's change, when there's conflict, they immediately go into the negative. Glass half full, they immediately go into blame. These are the people in the meeting rooms where if you have a new idea and you're sharing this new idea and their immediate first start of their sentence, yeah, but it's classic. That's the classic negative orientation. Right away, it's almost like they see risk. They see that they need more information. They see that they're uncomfortable with this change. And so right away they're saying, yeah, but have you thought of this? Or yeah, but we've done that before already. And so those are the people that have a natural negative orientation. That's what when they're stressed and something's changing, something's different, they immediately go into the negative. And how does that show up? Self-other is when you're in a disagreement with someone. Are you someone that focuses on yourself during the disagreement or the other person? And this is crazy because like when we do this profile, what I learned is typically people that are high self marry someone that's a high other. And that is so true between me and my husband. I realized that I'm really high self and he's really high other. And usually when we argue, it comes out like through and through. So basically it's how we focus on the conversation. And if it's conflict, it's like, okay, I'm feeling this. And I really only focus on how I'm feeling. And he's only focused on how I'm showing up and how I'm feeling. And he kind of blocks out with what he thinks and wants and needs. Balanced reliance on thoughts, wants, and feelings is how we are able to take our life experiences to show up in times of stress. So when you're stressed out, are you someone that immediately goes to wanting to fix? Or are you someone that immediately needs facts and data and information? Or are you someone that immediately goes to, this is how I feel about, this is my gut feeling, this is my intuition? Or are you balanced in all 3? So if you're balanced in all 3, what that looks like is that when you're stressed out, no one can tell. You're just calm, cool, collected. You're able to think clearly, tap into everything, the facts, what you need to do, how you feel about it really evenly. And then the last 2 things here is empathy. How are you with empathy for other people? Are you accurately at reading what someone's thinking, wanting, and feeling? Not just what someone's feeling. Empathy is knowing what someone thinks, wants, and feels. The 3 components. So can you accurately read what someone thinks, wants, and feels? And do you have the compassion to sit in it with them in how they need you to be there? And that's a measure of 5 and 6. And the last thing is, this is how do you self-soothe when you're in conflict? When you're stressed out and you're in conflict with another person, do you like to work it out with the other person? Or would you like to go out by yourself and figure it out by yourself? Or are you someone that likes to give the power to someone else to figure it out? And lastly, do you disconnect when you're in stress? And disconnect can mean physically leave the room, physically leave the conversation, or emotionally check out. You're there physically, but you're like, I'm done. Whether you pick up your phone or you start imagining something else, how are you with the levels of disconnect? So that's what an EQ assessment looks like when we start talking about your EQ assessment. No 2 people have the same assessment, and that's what's really cool about these assessments. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to dig really deep into this one piece of the pie on access of range of feelings to help you maybe guess and reflect back of maybe this is me, maybe it's not. Oh, this is the friend that I know that's showing up this way. And hopefully this will spark a lot of conversation in the comments on the side. So emotions are data. So not just facts and information, emotions are data. And a lot of times what we forget is it's like, oh, I feel so mad. But you don't dig deep enough to know, okay, what is me being mad telling me? What is this information telling me? So with each emotion, like I said, there's 7 categories of emotion. Fear, anger, anxiety, sadness, and shame is what we consider distressing feelings. Joy and love are the non-distressing feelings. So I'll go into each in a little bit more detail and give you examples of what I've seen and how it shows up. And as you can see here, each emotion gives you information, and there's a gift to every emotion. And we'll tap into that a little bit more. With emotions, the other thing is that when you look at this, you might think, well, I don't really feel some of these. What I feel a lot of times when I'm stressed is I feel very frustrated or annoyed of people. So yes, that definitely is an emotion, and it's not showing up here. And where it would show up is anger. So know that these are categories, and that you do have more emotions than maybe you articulate than these 7, but they would fall under one of these categories. Overwhelm could fall under sadness or anxiety. Helplessness falls under anxiety. So that's where, if you have other feelings and emotions that you're not seeing here, it should fall under one of these. All right, so let's just jump into the first one with fear. The data that fear gives us, it's the oldest feeling that we have. It's the fight or flight emotion, and it's telling our brain that there's a threat. And the gift about it is that when you feel fear, you immediately want to get into safety. You know that something is wrong. And so with your emotional intelligence, there's some people that have an ideal amount of fear where they're able to say, yeah, this is something that I need to look out for. This is a risk, and this is what I need to do about it if it's at an ideal state. What happens is when people over access the fear, it means that they're really afraid of taking risks. They're not comfortable with taking risks. And so what happens is that you'll see that people with high fear tend to stay in the safe zone. They tend to not change jobs even if they're unhappy. They tend to not move countries even though they've dreamed of doing that, because the risk is like the unknown is too much, and they tend to just kind of tick along. When people under access fear, it can mean that they do things where they just are almost like fearless. They're risk taking and all that. And like I mentioned, like with COVID, this whole thing that we see about hoarding, this is someone over accessing fear. So when you see someone hoarding toilet paper, it's that they're over accessing fear when they're stressed. That's their profile. So when they're stressed and they over access fear, what can they control? They control how they protect themselves, and they need to protect themselves. So they're here hoarding food and toilet paper, and that's their reaction to the stress, and that's what's going to help, what they think is going to help calm them down. Okay, someone that under accesses fear, these are the people that are still going out partying and still not social distancing. It's like, oh no, it can't happen to me, and they're moving out. Okay, I'll move into anger. So, oh yeah, one thing I wanted to give you an example of fear and how it might show up and why someone might over access fear or under access fear. So I was doing an EQ assessment with someone, and this individual under access fear quite a lot. And so I decided to tap into that a bit more with them about, the fact that they do under access fear and how does it show up and maybe why. And they shared with me that at a very young age, they had lost their father. Their father passed away suddenly, unexpected. And so he's like, from that moment on, when I was 12 and I realized that life can end like that unexpectedly, I decided I was going to live life to the fullest. Whatever went wrong can be fixed, and you never know when life is going to end. So he kind of used that life experience to all of a sudden now, as an adult, he now tends to under access fear, where he does things without really worrying about his safety, because it's almost this you never know when it's going to end philosophy. So as you can see, his reaction to fear came from his upbringing or his life experiences. And that's true to him and why it is. And I think us appreciating that we've all had different hardships and we are the way we are, I think that's where we can really appreciate other people. Anger. So anger, the data and message it gives us is violation. It's not okay. gift is boundaries, motivation, and direction. That's the gift that anger gives. And this example, this is one where it hit really home for me. Like when someone under accesses anger, it might mean that they don't have the boundaries to protect themselves. They don't have the boundaries of what is okay and what is not okay. And so when I got my profile back, I under access anger a lot. And so I took a lot of time, a few months, to really dig deep into this piece of why I under access anger. And I realized that growing up in my household with my parents, Asian household, obviously, my dad was the breadwinner, typical Asian home. Dad was a breadwinner. Mom was a stay-at-home mom, took care of us, cooked, cleaned, was basically a full-time mom. My dad was someone that was really strict. And so anytime, like, let's say I wanted to go out with friends and he would say no, as soon as I would say, why, even ask the question, why, I would get in so much trouble. He would get so angry. And so I learned to shut off that anger because it wasn't allowed in my house. Like I couldn't talk back. I couldn't even ask why something was. So what I would do is I'd go to my room and cry. I'd be so frustrated, I would cry. And that was fine. I never got yelled at for crying or showing sadness. So my profile is now I under access anger and I have this crazy amount of sadness because that's what I learned as an upbringing. And then how that has translated in my corporate life, the more I dug deep, was that I didn't have the boundaries to say no or ask why when I didn't feel like it was something I should be doing. So when I was working with clients, if a client wanted me to do something that was not my role or was not my job, I had a hard time saying no. I would say, okay, yeah, no, I can do it. I can figure it out. Yeah, when do you want it done? Yep, I got it. And I would do it. I would work my butt off to get it done. And so what I realized through this is that I didn't have the boundaries to not just talk back, but to defend myself when maybe it wasn't supposed to be my role. And so what I learned with this is now that I'm aware of it, when someone asks me to do something at work or something that is not mine to do and is not my role, or I can't do it in that time, I immediately put my foot down to say, no, I actually can't, and I renegotiate the terms of what they need. And that was from my awareness of EQ. And what has come out of that I was like scared to do. I was so scared to do that, but I was like, I know I need to, because I need to like know what is right, what is okay and not okay. And so what happens out of that is that what has come out is confidence. Like I come out as this confident person now where it's like, I'm kind of running it. Like I'm not being told what to do. I'm part of that conversation as an equal, even if that person is higher up than me. So that's where it's so powerful with EQ, with bringing your upbringing to like where you are today, whether you're a student or you're a corporate person or you're an entrepreneur, is really understanding why and then how you can change it. And the impacts of that is amazing. Anxiety. So anxiety is too much information, not enough information. And what the gift of it is clarity and managing risk. So when it comes to anxiety, people that over access anxiety, these are the people that constantly need more information. I need more data, more facts, more history, like history, what have we done before, da, 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 da. So when you're working with someone on project work and they have over access of anxiety, and you're someone that under accesses anxiety, it could drive you nuts. You're like, why do they need all this stuff to make a decision before we move forward? Why do we need all this data? And that's because they over access anxiety. When they're stressed, they want more and more information. You see this with COVID. Like some people have been like, not really a big social media person. And then all of a sudden COVID, they're sharing like news articles, they're sharing these lives of like the news, and they're sharing articles, and they're sharing where you can buy toilet paper, and they're sharing so much information because what they're doing is this is a sign that they over access anxiety. And what they're doing, and they feel like it's helping them, they think that someone else needs this information when that's not necessarily the case. And then you have the people that's the opposite, where you under access anxiety, where they've just they've kind of tuned that out. They're like, whatever, it'll end when it ends. I don't need to know how many people are infected in my city. It doesn't matter. I'm just staying at home. Like that fact is useless, where, you know, you could see the differences there. So the next one is sadness. So sadness, there's a lot of It's a root empathy to it's a root to empathy. And sadness, there's a lot of wisdom in sadness. So when someone has a lot of sadness, it shows that they've gone through a lot of life experiences. They're very sensitive. They've experienced loss in their life. So they've gone through a lot in their life. And so sadness can show up in so many different ways on this one, where you're overwhelmed by other people's pain. If you're a high empathetic person, you can be overwhelmed with other people and how they're feeling, what they're going through, frontline workers, people who've lost their jobs, where you've been overcome in sadness because of someone else. Sadness could also be yourself, where you get stuck in the sadness of this overwhelm, where when you're in a conflict, you immediately start crying. That might be a way it shows up. And so sadness is one where be really mindful of, if you're someone that has high sadness, to not stay in that sadness, because the longer you stay in that sadness, it could create this depletion or depression. Shame. So I'm going to tap into this one a little bit more. Shame is wrongdoing, and the gift of shame is humility. And shame is one where it links so much to our upbringing. When you're a kid, you're taught what's right, what's wrong, what are the right values to have. You can do this, you shouldn't do this. This is not the right way. You need to go to school. You need to get a good job. That's all from our upbringing. And that's like buried so deep within us. And so what happens with shame is that when people are over accessing shame, what happens is they have very high expectations on themselves. And then therefore what sometimes happens is they have very high expectations on another person. So they're very hard on other people, whether it's their kids, their spouse, their colleagues, but they're also hard on themselves. And so when people that are over accessing in shame, what happens is they do a lot of self-talk. I should have done this. I could have done this. Why didn't I do this? And they strive for this perfection that doesn't exist. And it becomes so exhausting that you're constantly beating yourself up and saying things in your head to yourself that you probably would never say to someone else, but you're your own worst critic. And so be really mindful of this time right now with shame, is that you see people shaming other people. You see yourself shaming yourself of like, why didn't I prepare my family more? Why did I go out and I got sick? Or you're just constantly, and it's this internal dialogue where you beat yourself up and you break down your confidence, and it's exhausting. So that is shame. And so know that no one has a COVID handbook. We don't even have a cure at this point. No one knows what to do at this time other than maybe social distance. But no one knows how to be a really great parent while you're trying to do your job. No one does. No one has a handbook. So give yourself some grace. We're all navigating the gray. Give others grace. People are dealing with stress, and these behaviors that come out might not be who they are when they're in their best self. I wanted to tap into joy and love a lot more, because what's interesting is I know we always talk, especially in social media, about filling our joy cup. And I think that is very, very important. But there is such thing as over accessing joy and love. And there's obviously the under accessing joy and love, and they come hand in hand together. When someone under accesses joy and love, what happens is that they spend a lot of their time in one or more than one of these distressing feelings. So out of 100% of times that you feel feelings, a lot of it is in the fear, anger, anxiety, sadness, shame feelings. So what happens is it brings down your joy and love levels as the distressing ones increase. So as you fill your joy cup, when we talk about joy, like what brings you joy, what, like whether it's working out, reading, yoga, stretching, watching TV, what brings you joy? As you fill your joy cup, your distressing feelings will go down. Okay. Now, what happens when someone over accesses love and joy? When they over access love and joy, it becomes an unhealthy state. And what I mean about that is they become to a point where they've learned sometime through their lives, it's a coping mechanism where they've experienced a lot of distressing feelings, maybe when they were younger, and that didn't feel good. And so what they learn to do is shove these distressing feelings under the rug. Shove it under the rug as if they don't exist. They're just like, nope, it's not happening. Everything is fine. Everything is great. No, everything's perfect. We're wonderful. Everything's unicorns and rainbows. And so they're living this life that's not really reality. And so what happens is that things will crack, and some things, a distressing feeling will come up out of nowhere, and you're like, whoa, that's so weird that this person is showing up like this. randomly. And then it'll be like, oh, no, no, everything's good. Everything's good. And then they'll immediately shove it back under the rug. And that is not healthy either, because if you think about it, even if we call it distressing feelings, they have gifts. They really have gifts if they're at an ideal level. And so when you shove it under, all of a sudden you're not taking care of yourself. You're not creating healthy boundaries. You're not being okay with admitting that you did something wrong. You just create this life is perfect facade where people can't get close to you because that's not real and they know it's not real. And so I ended up doing an assessment on someone who had this overaccess of love and joy, and it was the most fascinating assessment. What I learned from this person was she grew up with an alcoholic father. And so what had happened is growing up, they grew up in a small town, and she was known as the alcoholic's daughter throughout her whole life. And she said as soon as she turned 18, she moved to Canada, which was across the world. She lived in another country by herself. She's like, I decided at the moment I was going to start over, and I was going to let my history of being an alcoholic's daughter and people feeling sorry for me, I was going to leave that all behind. And so she started over. And so she ended up creating this life in Canada that she thought was like wonderful and great, got married, all this stuff, to the point where she's like, I don't even think my husband even knew when he married me what kind of family I came from. And now, like, obviously he's met them and stuff, and it's like, why didn't you tell me about your family? And so what she says she did was she just created this perfect life, or tried to envision a perfect life. So when things got bad, she'd be like, nope, this is better than what I came from. And she wouldn't allow these distressing feelings to come up because she lived in that for so long when she was a child. And so what this came up with is this coping behavior that she has where she's not really in reality. And what happens is that it creeps up sometimes and she's not dealing with it. And eventually it's gonna blow up. And so it's really fascinating with these individuals is that she didn't realize or appreciate that sometimes distressing feelings are good and healthy. And that's how she dealt with it, is that, yeah, she came from a lot of distressing feelings and she decided to turn it off. And so that, hopefully you can appreciate people that over-access joy and love is most likely they've experienced something in their childhood that was so bad that they don't like to feel that, and they've shut it off completely. So people that under-access love and joy, when you under-access love and joy and you're not filling up your own bucket, it's as if the more you do it, or the more you don't fill up your joy bucket, the more you have low energy, then it goes to depletion, and then it could be signs of depression. And so when I think of joy and love, as like your resiliency and how you connect with other people. The easiest way I can explain joy, because I know joy is like, some people think it's happiness, and it's not necessarily happiness. So joy, so think of yourself on a road trip with joy. So let's say you're on a road trip and you have a healthy amount of joy in your profile. You're starting off this road trip with a full tank of gas. That's the example I have. You're going on a road trip. Oh, your kid needs to pee. Okay, no problem. Let's take this detour. Oh, they need a snack. Okay, fine. We should have packed more snacks. Let's go get snacks. Oh, there's an accident. That sucks. At least we can get there. It's fine, but this is just annoying. It's fine though, right? And you get there, A to B, things get in the way, you can deal with it. But when you under-access joy and you're not filling your own joy bucket first, it's like you're starting off on a road trip with your tank half full. And when your tank is half full, it's like, okay, honey, can you Google Map where we're supposed to go? We can't get lost. Can you find out where the next gas station is? Oh my God, you have to pee. Okay, no, we have to get to a gas station. Can you hold it? And it just piles on. It's more, the littlest things can become more and more stressful. There's an accident. Now you're like freaking out, like, okay, what if we run out of gas? What are we going to do? Oh my God. And then why didn't you fill out the gas? And then it just like becomes this like thing. And so when you under-access joy and you're not filling yourself, every little thing adds up to those distressing feelings, and they keep coming. It's like you make mountains out of a molehill because you can't handle that much more. So you don't have the resilience to stay in when things are tough, and that's where you end up disconnecting. So hopefully that helps you understand what joy is. And so with joy, the more you fill your joy bucket, what is truly makes you joyful? Not, oh, bringing my kids to ballet practice. Yes, I get seeing your kids joyful brings you joy, but how are you filling your own joy bucket? I think it's a question that you can ask yourself. What brings me joy? And do I allow myself to do things that bring me joy? Do I allow other people to take care of me? So those are some really good questions that you can ask to really hone in on that joy piece, because it's so important during this time. So hopefully those feelings really help you understand yourself, and you could kind of like, maybe I over access fear, and maybe I do under access anger, or and try to kind of understand where you might fall, because the more you can understand yourself, and then maybe think of someone else where your relationship is challenged, to really get an understanding, maybe this is why we're not getting along, is because they over access anxiety and I under access anxiety. And so hopefully through that will give you better empathy, which is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. Okay, so during times of stress and uncertainty, people feel things more. People behave differently in response of their environment. And so when you are aware of how you're feeling and take the time to understand why someone else is feeling the way they're feeling, you can create better empathy. All right, stress makes us stupid. So our reactions to stress are hardwired and automatic unless we become more conscious of what triggers us and thoughts that have got us there. And this is where I dug really deep on that anger piece of understanding what kind of household did I grow up in, what kind of learnings did I get from my parents, and why am I the way I am, and why do I show up the way I show up, and why am I a pushover in my corporate job, which is changing, which is good, because I'm now aware of these triggers and I'm aware of it, so I'm able to shift it and do something different with it. But before I wasn't aware of it, and it was kind of like, oh, I don't know why I got stuck with this project. And it just was like this thing that I never even realized that it was attached to my anger and my upbringing. If fitness is the speed of recovery physically, I love this quote, EQ is the speed of emotional resiliency and recovery. So it's the mindset. It's not the physical, it's the emotional. And they're both just as important. Now, what is resiliency? So resiliency is an ability to recover from or adjust easily to adversity or change. We're all going through change. Something has changed in your life. Everyone on this call, everyone in the world has experienced change right now. And so the people who have the more joy in their bucket can deal with, have the resilience to deal with change easier. So you could see some people adjusting to this new normal easier. And you could see some people right now are struggling. Those people that are struggling are the people that are lacking the resiliency to really recover and adjust from adversity and change, because things are changing out of their control, and maybe they're not used to it, or maybe they didn't take the time to fulfill their own needs, and now everything is being like kind of added on top, like that road trip with your gas tank half full. So what does resilient look like? So people who are resilient, and maybe think of yourself during this time. Are you resilient during COVID right now? Are you being resilient? Are you seeking out new challenges? Are you viewing problems as challenges and opportunities? Are you not being overwhelmed by doubt and anxiety? It doesn't mean that you don't feel it, but are you letting it overcome you? Are you realistically optimistic still when under stress? Looking at like the silver lining of some of these things. Don't feel shame or depression when faced with failure. Like I said, there's no COVID handbook. We're all going to experience things that maybe we're not proud of, or conversations that we did that we're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have come up like that. But are you beating yourself up with it or losing sleep over it? Do you have the capacity to make realistic plans and take steps to follow through on those plans? Have a positive view of yourself and confidence of this in the strengths and in your strengths and your abilities. Possess skills in communication and problem solving and are able to manage strong feelings and impulses. Benefits of being resilient is that you're able to cope with stress better. You're able to adapt to change and lead healthy lives. You're able to improve the quality of life. Like when people are resilient, it's like, don't sweat the small stuff. They don't just say it, they actually don't sweat the small stuff, because they've filled their joy bucket to be able to get through a lot of these stresses. Tap into hidden strengths. They remain positive even extremely difficult times. Improve our relationships. Who's improved relationships during this time? Through connecting through Zoom. Like for me, I knew I could do better at this. And so I started scheduling Zoom calls with friends that are not in town. And I usually don't even talk to these friends unless they're coming into town to visit. So I've been really mindful of that, because with COVID and this whole everyone just social distancing, that love piece is connection. And when you're not taking the time to connect, that love will be under access. It's going to start going down. This call right here was created because I wanted to make sure that I kept my love levels at an ideal state. Right here, where I don't know how many people are on this call, but we're all, you might know one or two people, but a majority of us are strangers in North America. I think majority of people are in North America. If you're somewhere else, then welcome, and we're so happy to have you. But we're strangers, and for some reason we're connecting on this level where we're all kind of thinking about how we are showing up with stress, and how maybe someone that we know is showing up with stress, or maybe might need an EQ assessment to understand and help them cope during this time. People who are resilient are able to build a successful career. Yeah, I would say, to be honest and completely vulnerable, this call right here is one of the most successful calls Jen and I have had. And it's during one of the hardest times that we've ever had. And a lot of that, I think, is understanding our own EQ and watching out for things that we need to watch out for, because we do not have a perfect EQ by all means. It's just that awareness of being able to, Jen's laughing because it's like, oh, when I saw my EQ, I was like, nah, this is not me. I have more empathy than this. Recover from major life stressors, illness and job. And what's crazy is this slide was created before COVID. So who's going to be able to recover from COVID faster? It's the people that are more resilient. So how can you build your resiliency muscle? So here's some tips. So write this down if you have a pen and paper. So there's 5 things that you can do to really build your resiliency muscle. Positive attitude, your ability to see possibilities and opportunities, even if you are stressed, even if things are going terribly wrong. You still can see the possibilities. What can I do to help other people during this time? What can I do to do something that I have always wanted to do that I didn't have the time to do? I've always wanted to build a website. I never had the time. Let's do that now. It doesn't mean that you're neglecting all the realities and you're like not in the right, like you're just being completely fake. It's like, okay, this is what I'm given. These are the cards I'm dealt with. Now, what am I going to do with it? 2, social connections. Thank you for jumping on. You've filled my joy and love bucket. And I hope that this has filled you a little bit. Connecting with other people, being mindful. I have a Zoom drinking thing tomorrow with my friends, and I'm so excited for that. Fill your joy and love bucket through social connection. Social media and technology is great for that right now. Flexibility. Seeing the big picture and being open to new ideas and being flexible to change. Know that there might not be a normal for a long time. Accept that and deal with the changes. But at the same time, realize whether or not you're being really hard on yourself and other people. Set boundaries. Are you allowing healthy conversations to happen? Or are you shutting it down because it's too much? Or opposite, are you allowing unhealthy conversations to go on for too long? Being organized, get the info you need to make the decision for you and your family. And this goes on for the news, the information. Get what you need to make realistic actions, but don't overwhelm yourself of analysis paralysis. Set up your day, plan your day, book future sessions of like Zoom sessions for your business, Zoom sessions with colleagues, Zoom sessions with fellow peers and students, teachers, friends. Be organized and set up a calendar so it's like you keep yourself busy, keep yourself motivated. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have a bad day where you're like, okay, I'm being organized, but tomorrow I've decided I'm just going to Netflix and chill. That's okay too. It's okay. So give yourself some grace during this time, but being organized can really make you plan as opposed to feeling down and then like, oh, I have no plans. Make plans, get organized, book something. Take initiative, and the other person will totally appreciate when you take initiative to book something with them. I really believe in that. Okay, so what time is it? I blabbed on. Okay, good. I made for a good time. I could like honestly talk for 8 hours, but I know I want to be respectful of your time. It's 12:45 Mountain Standard Time. We have 15 minutes for questions, and so Jen's going to facilitate some questions. And then she's going to close because we do have an offer for you guys. As you can see, the coupon code is a little teaser for you guys, because you guys took some time to connect and fill our joy and love bucket today.
So just to note, the coupon code is wrong. It's April 2020 now. Minor mistake. So I'll type that out here.
April 2020, not March. What day is it?
We don't even know what month or what year it is. So yeah. So does anyone have any questions? Feel free to type it out or even unmute yourself. We'll give a few minutes for questions. Or you can feel free to DM us later if you have questions.
And or type on the side too. Did any comments come in, Jen, that you want to like just
they're just comments. There's not really any questions. Or someone's asking about are we going to be recording this session?
Yes, so we did record it.
Yeah.
We did record it. So yeah, if you're wanting to, like, if we went too fast or something like that, definitely connect with us. We don't know if we're gonna post it quite yet, because we do have another free session next week as well, where we're presenting the same materials. And for us, like, as much as like the recording could bring value, I love like seeing your faces and as being able to like connect on this type of a level. And so that's why we've been thinking through, do we just send out a mass of our recording, or do we just keep holding these sessions to connect people in one, like all together, bring people together in 1 hour? So we're thinking that through. But if you really think it's going to add value for you right now and in what you're going through, yeah, DM us. Our website is www, it's not on here, www.goalandglow.com, and is AND.com, and there's a area that you can leave comments and message us there, and we'll get your email and we can send you the recording.
So we have a question from Desnell. It says, where can we find a trusted source to take an EQ assessment? So can you kind of go over what an EQ assessment entails?
I love that question. Yeah, and I love that it's a trusted source, because I can say that I've had really crazy, vulnerable sessions with leaders, grown men crying and sobbing and needing to take the afternoon off. Like, I didn't share that example, but it was on one where this individual over-accessed shame. Sorry, I'm getting off on a tangent. I promise I'll answer your question. This person over-accessed shame. And so we really tapped into that. And I realized that this man only slept 4 hours a night for the last 3 years. And I'm like, what? How are you surviving? And it's because he had this crazy amount of guilt, because he was a safety person on site and someone passed away on site, an employee passed away. And he was someone that had high self-shame. So he beat himself up for someone else's death, even though it was not obviously his fault. As a safety person, you come up with the rules, the guidelines, the processes, but maybe this person didn't follow those processes or whatever might have happened, right? But he slept 4 hours a night because he could never sleep, because he every day beat himself up. He was sobbing on the call. And then he realized, I'm like that to my kids. I am so hard on my kids the way my parents were so hard on me. And now I'm creating kids who are going to be so hard on themselves the way I am to myself. And so he was sobbing, and it was just, oh my God, it was the most amazing like epiphany that he had of, you need to be okay with being perfectly imperfect. You're striving for something that does not exist. You need to move on from what you did wrong and learn from your mistakes, but move on. Like, what is you sleeping 4 hours a night going to help that situation? It is not. No one wants that. And so it was this crazy therapeutic, amazing session that we had, and it was really cool. So that being said, with the assessment, I do assessments. That is a big piece of our business, Goal and Glow, and there's more information on our website. Jen, can you put the website on the comments, because it's not on here? So what that assessment entails is it's a package, because I would never want you guys to take an assessment and get a report without meeting me for an hour and a half, for us to really dig into why you are the way you are, how does this show up today, and what can we do to improve it? Because the report will show you the snapshot of what you are and how you show up, but it doesn't connect those dots. So the package includes, the first thing is the assessment, and that was going back to, let's see here, this page right here. It's this page, and it is basically, let me just quickly pull. Sorry, guys. This is my assessment, and this is what you would get. So it's 45 minutes, and you watch videos. So I'm sure you guys have taken personality tests like Enneagram, Myers-Briggs, Insights, all those things. Great. They put you in a box, and it's like you're number 3, and you're like, well, I'm kind of 3, but sometimes I'm 7, and you know, I'm sometimes an extrovert and sometimes an introvert. Myers-Briggs, there's no 2 people with the same profile. It is tailored to you. So you take 45 minutes where you watch videos, and then you answer based on video. So you're actually watching. You're not just reading, imagining, and answering. You're actually seeing the verbal, nonverbal cues of people, like a movie or a show, and you answer questions. And what comes out of it is a 10-page report, what I have here. And it's back-to-back 10 pages, double-sided, of your EQ profile that is true to you. And so what I'm showing here is really the summary of the page. After you get the report, I get the report, I send you the report. So you get the 10-page report to keep, and then we book an hour and a half that works for you, and we'd get on a Zoom call one-on-one, and I would go through, and that's where we will connect the dots to be like, oh my gosh, yes, that's me, and that's why, and this is maybe why, and this is how I show up at work, and what can I do to improve it? And then that's where it all like, wow. And I can say that even after your EQ assessment, there's moments, and Jen can share maybe after this, of moments of, wow, this is my EQ showing up. I didn't even realize it at the time of my assessment, but now that I'm aware of it, wow. So I think Jen has a story that she has to share about after I did her EQ assessment, because Jen was one of my toughest clients, being my sister. She was like, didn't really believe that that was her.
Yeah, and I'm definitely one of those people that do love personality tests and all that stuff. Like as Jay mentioned on the side here, that I think he wants to know, what does it go hand in hand with your personality test?
It does, but I would say,
after.
Yeah, sorry. I would say your personality is your personality, and a lot of personality tests is how you are when you're at a normal state. The EQ, how it's different is it's how you show up and why you show up when you're stressed and when you're in relationship with other people. And so it helps you understand other people because of how you are showing up. And the difference with EQ is when you're stressed, and when you actually think of when you're in stress and conflict, that's a lot of times. Like, I don't know about you, but I balance mom life, work life, what I need to cook for dinner. Oh my God, I need to check this email. I forgot to send that out. Like, that is stressful. Right? And so we're living in this world where things are moving so quickly, and there's this underlying stress, and it's how are you showing up when you're stressed? And then the tools of how are you, when you're mindful of it, what can you do differently? Just like the story I told you about my anger of, now I'm aware that I have no boundaries and I'm a pushover. Now, what am I going to do about it? And it's not like the next day I was like, okay, I'm going to start saying no. Like, it was, okay, I'm going to test the water, dip the toe in and try. And then the more I tried, the more now I've become way more respected, where my leaders, I work with senior leaders on my full-time job, and they call me for advice all the time. Like, it's now like, okay, this is the project. Lena, what part are you able to take? As opposed to, Lena, you're taking this part. So it's come full circle, where now it's like I exude a different type of a confidence that I didn't exude before, because I didn't have the boundaries. So I was like almost do as told kind of person, jump how high, right?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I feel like with EQ, it's definitely a step further. So for my example, so Lena and I, we grew up in the same household, but my EQ was completely different than hers. With our dad, like as she mentioned before, our only relationship with our dad was whenever he talked to us, it would be like in order, like go get my slippers, or go clean your room, or it would be something we did wrong. It would never be like a normal conversation, like, how was your day? What are you working on? How are you feeling? So for me,
stop talking, eat faster.
Yeah. She would always tell us stop talking during dinner time. But for me, that shows that in my results, I am highly anxious and highly fearful, especially at times of distress. And I could see that, because walking at home, it would be like walking on eggshells, trying to avoid any sort of interaction with our dad, because if he talked to me, it'd be like, he's going to yell at me,
you're in trouble.
I did something wrong. So I can definitely see that in a corporate setting, because for me in my early 20s, I got my CPA at a really young age. I got it when I was 24 years old. And by then I was already working in accounting for 4 years prior to that. But for me, any sort of manager or upper management, I would always kind of tiptoe around them as if they were like my dad. It'd be like, they'd tell me what to do, I'd get it done. they'd say good job, and then I would just kind of leave. And I would never really converse and build any sort of relationship with them, because I thought that's what I needed to do to build respect in the workplace. And I really think that did cripple me for a really long time in the corporate ladder, because I would see other people getting promoted before me, and I'm like, I worked the hardest. I did the most things, but why am I not considered to get promoted? And this EQ assessment has been eye-opening for me, because now I realize, like, whenever it's times of distress, I disconnect immediately, and that's my way to, you know, how I deal with the anxiety and the fear in a workplace. So now I catch myself doing it, and it's okay to build relationships, and that's the only way you're gonna move up in a corporation, because it's all about relationships and building that connection with people. So I can definitely say now I have such great communication with my manager, my VP, and my directors. And, you know, like, things have been so much better for me just because of knowing what I know now with my EQ assessment. And I think definitely that does compare differently than the Myers-Briggs or any sort of personality test, because this is how you show up in stressful times and building relationships with people.
Yeah, I think if I would have known and had my EQ done earlier, I honestly feel like I would be in a different place. Because yeah, I was always like super timid in the corporate world, and I never really spoke up or shared my ideas or really pushed back. Like, and now being aware of it, I've really shifted my behavior, and I could see it really falling through with not just the business and our clients and having that confidence, but in so many other ways. And even Jen and my working relationship, now that I know her profile, I've always assumed her and I were very similar, because we grew up the same, but we like the same things, we wear the same kind of clothes, all this stuff, and I thought we were the same people. But then her EQ profile is so different than mine, and growing up in the same household, it comes back to our perception became our reality. And we, just because we're sisters doesn't mean we didn't experience different things and felt things differently. And so now I have a better understanding of her and how she shows up when she's stressed, that as business partners, we're able to work on our strengths and be able to have better empathy for each other. Because I'm like, oh, she's asking me all these questions and want all these details and all these things. She's not just doing that to annoy me because I have lower anxiety than her. I'm like, let's just
like no, don't wing it. Let's not wing it.
I need to know what questions you're going to ask. And I'm like, but why? And I would get so frustrated because I'm like, you're just wasting my time. Like, I have so much to do. And so now I can appreciate that that's her when she's stressed, and that's what she needs, not because she's trying to annoy me, right? So there's so much of that.
Right.
So we're at 12:58.
Yeah.
And before people jump off, I just want to share like the coupon code, the April 2020, not March 2020.
So yeah, thank you guys so much for joining us. If you found this helpful, we would love to hear from you or continue this conversation by sharing on your Instagram or Facebook stories and tagging us at Goal and Glow, or leaving us a comment or a review on our Facebook page, Goal and Glow. We will also be sending out feedback forms. It's only a couple questions. If you guys can please fill it out, that would be so great, because we're always open to suggestions and for improvement. And also, if you're interested in learning more about a full EQ assessment, we do offer a 15-minute free call, just so that we can kind of further explain to you what it's all about, and just reach out to us on Facebook or Instagram.
Yeah, so it's a 15% off the package that you'll see on the website. And that package was the three things: the assessment, the report, and an hour and a half with me. And that's hour and a half, I'm telling you, will change your life in terms of how you are able to pave your way, whether it's entrepreneurship or leadership. And it's all on the website. And if you have questions, feel free to DM us for sure. All right. Thank you all so much for your time and your questions and your engagement. Oh my God, Netherlands. Hi. Oh, thank you. Gosh, this is so cool. Welcome.
This is awesome,
my God,
you guys.
This is so crazy.
We look forward to connecting with all of you guys.
Yeah, so we'll let you know if we have any future Zoom sessions. So that's where your comments and feedback come in handy. If there's certain things that you want me to tap into more, it doesn't mean that we can't create another Zoom for you guys.
Yes.
Okay, thanks guys.
Thank you. Bye.